Hey guys, it's Leslie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. My name is Leslie and I'm super excited that you're here joining me for today. Girl, let me just be blunt. I recently had to throw away all of my pumped milk stash in the sink and into the trash. So that is what we were going to be talking about today in this video. So we're just going to be talking about my experience with pumping, first postpartum, second postpartum, why I had to throw it away, and then just like some educational information in regarding pumping, breast milk storage, and all of that fun stuff. So if that sounds like your cup of coffee, then please keep on watching. Okay, so like I mentioned, I did have to throw away all of my saved pumped breast milk down the drain and into the trash because it completely thawed itself out. And it was at room temperature for I don't even know how long it was. And because there was no bit of frozen particle inside of it, and because by the time I got to it, it was room temperature, pretty much a little bit warm at that point, and because I had no idea of how long it had been sitting in that temperature, it was just not going to be a safe call for me to try and save it or try and reuse it for my kids to use. And so when I tell you my heart literally like sank, it literally sank like it was a really rough night for me. And even the day after, I was just like very down and I just felt it in my face. It was just so like puffy and inflamed from how much crying I was doing from that same night. And girl, I was just having a whole mental breakdown because my freezer was literally filled with my saved breast milk. And this was all when I was freshly postpartum after having my daughter, my second baby. And for the fact that it thawing by itself and it was completely out of my control was just like the raw cherry on top because if I would have had control of thawing it out, then I would have been the one to point the finger at, because I would have voluntarily have thought it out myself. And then from there, if it would have gone to waste, then okay, that would have been my fault. But because my outlet decided to stop working, hence my refrigerator was not on and plugged in, mind you, I had it all saved in my refrigerator that is actually in my garage, and that is our extra refrigerator that we have. And we don't really go in it because we don't really have any stuff in there. Honestly, all we had was just my breast milk in the freezer and then just open alcohol bottles in the fridge. Other than that, that's all that we had in that fridge. And so it was just the backup fridge. And that is why I had all of my breast milk in there, was because I had all of the space and it was just its own little designated area. And so that outlet literally just stopped working on its own. And I forgot about it, to be honest. And I hadn't checked on it since I don't even know how long. And because it came to the point of me just checking if there was alcohol inside of the fridge and what kind of alcohol I wanted, because originally I wanted to drink because, mind you, I was already having a long day with my kids and I just wanted to relax and release some of the stress by enjoying a cup of drink. And so when I went into that fridge to originally get alcohol just to relieve my stress out of the long day that I had of single momming it to my two kids, I found that my fridge light was not on and that my fridge was dark and that my fridge was hot. I opened the freezer and that is when I see that my freezer was not working. My freezer was not cold. All of my milk completely thawed itself out. The fat and the water in my actual breast milk had completely separated in all of my milk bags. And that is when the emotional roller coaster started. And then after that, I sure did pour myself a couple of cups because, girl, it was just more of a reason to keep drinking because I really needed to just have that moment and process it and just like let all of the feelings seep in and just like burst out, because it was really hard for me seeing that. And then it was the day after that I had actually threw everything down the drain and threw away the milk bags in the trash. And so after seeing it in the freezer, I got the outlet to keep working again, and I just left it in the freezer. And even though, I wasn't going to use it, I just needed to just leave it back in the freezer. And so the next day came, I took it out of the freezer and I left it on the counter, and it was just sitting there all day on the counter, and it was just like there. And I just needed to see it one last time, and I just needed for it to take up the space in the common area for me to just see. And yeah, towards the evening time, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to throw it out. And there I was. I threw it out down the drain and threw away all the milk bags. And literally, I have no saved breast milk any longer. The only bit of breast milk that I do have is actually a couple of handmade bar soaps that I had made with oatmeal. And I do have a little bit of those in my freezer in my house. And so that is literally the last of bit of saved breast milk that I have from being postpartum with my daughter. And so that in itself was just a whole experience and everything, and that was the whole situation. But I just wanted to kind of give more of a background as to why I was so emotional with it and why I had such a deep connection with it. And so let's get into that now. So when I was postpartum with my son, I actually had a hard time getting him to latch, let alone just my milk coming in and being able to have a milk stash for him in the refrigerator or the freezer, whatever it may be, just so like that he can drink that milk in a bottle. And just being freshly postpartum, barely coming home from the hospital, and just those few fresh days, or honestly, even like couple first weeks of being postpartum and coming home from the hospital, I was just having a really, really hard time getting my son to latch on my own and getting him to stay on the boob. And then also being able to have a little bit of a milk stash for him to have for later, as I was talking about. And so I would literally cry so much to my husband and just be so sad and worried that my son wasn't getting enough food from me, or I felt that I was failing because I wasn't able to get my son to latch or get my milk to come in as I wanted it to, or being able to produce the glory amount of milk that I wanted to right away. And because it was such of a struggle to me the first time being postpartum and just as a first time mom, first time having a baby, the little bit that I was able to save for later in the fridge with my son, I was just very proud of myself and I was very happy with it. And I was just like so high over the moon that I was able to start getting like, okay, 1 ounce here, 2 ounces here, an ounce and a half here. And so it was just like a very little bit in the beginning. And I was just like very happy with the amount that I was getting, because I was doing something right that was showing me that my body was making progress and that it was going in the direction of what it needed to do. It just took a little bit longer and it was a little bit harder than I expected it to. But in the moment, I was just going through the trenches. And like I said, I was just very emotional. Having postpartum depression and anxiety did not help. And so it was just a lot of downhill that I was going through. And we were really just in the trenches in terms of like my breastfeeding journey, my milk coming in, building up a stash for him. And so it was really, really rough. And so when it came to being postpartum, the second time around with my daughter, my milk supply was absolutely phenomenal, and it was nothing like my first time. My daughter was able to latch right away while we were in the hospital, and honestly, her and I just figured it out ourselves. We didn't need extra staff assistance, and from the rest of the time at the hospital, I was able to get her to latch on my own. Even coming home, I was able to get her latched. My milk supply came in right away, and honestly, I ended up becoming an oversupplier for her. And I forgot to mention earlier, but with my son, I guess I can call it, I was a under supplier or like a just enougher supplier. But with my daughter, I was definitely an over supplier because compared to with my son, he was breastfed and formula fed. And with my daughter, she has only been given breast milk. And so every time that I would feed her from the boob, I would start doing a little milk stash. And so I would be pumping. And I ended up creating just this really, really surprisingly large amount of extra breast milk that I was accumulating. And that's not even including all of the milk that she would be getting from breastfeeding. And so I would do the exact same thing with pumping with both of my kids. I would do the pumping. I would do it about between every 2 4 hours, and I would just do it for about 15 20 minutes every session. I would do it in the middle of the night. And so my pumping has been the same. It's literally just my body now having more experience and my milk supply being faster flow coming in sooner, and then just the difference between my babies and how fast they were able to latch, and the fact of latching by ourselves. And so I put in the same amount of time, the same amount of hours, the same amount of energy of pumping for both of my kids. And so that was exactly the same, I would say. And because of me being an oversupplier this time and having just an overwhelming amount of milk that I had saved, I was super duper high over the moon for it because I knew of how I was in point A of being freshly postpartum the first time, and then now being what it is this postpartum. I was just like, wow, like I really did have to go through the trenches to get to where I'm at now. And so that's why I was just like so proud of myself, and I was flaunting it, and I would just like always brag about it to my family and my husband and everything. And so when I found that my milk had completely thawed and that it was no good for me to use anymore and I had to throw it away, that is why it hurt me so much, because of just the struggles that I faced when I was freshly postpartum with my son. So not only was I feeling like I was throwing a piece of me away, which I literally was because my breast milk is a part of me, I was also just throwing away something that I was no longer going to be able to use for my daughter. And third, it was just the fact that I had this luxury of having this much milk, which I was so grateful to have this time around. But because I didn't have it the first time around, it was like if I could go back in time and like grab all of this abundance of extra milk that I had and be able to have it for when I was first postpartum with my son, I would in an instant heartbeat, because first time mom Leslie just was really going through it, and she definitely would have loved the amount of breast milk that I had now. This now brings us into our third topic of what can breast milk be used for other than feeding to your baby. And so you can actually use breast milk to make your baby food, your homemade baby food, aka you're pureeing your baby's food. And instead of blending the food with water, you can actually blend it with your breast milk. Personally, I have also used it for bar soaps, homemade bar soaps. And so you buy all of the ingredients that you want to be in your bar soaps, and then you also just add in your breast milk with it, and it's a nice little homemade bar soap treat that I have personally made for myself, and I have seen many other moms use online. And the third thing that I have personally done with my breast milk as an extra thing is mix it in with my kids' baths. So whenever they're having any kind of skin issue, that's when I would use the breast milk and mix it in with their baths. And because I am no professional expert in terms of pumping and breast milk storing, I would definitely be sharing some information in this video, professional official information gathered from the internet on here. So like that, y'all can also get that educational information here on this video rather than just like my opinion and my story and what had happened to me. So like that, it hopefully does not happen to anybody else, because just the funny thing is that I had actually seen this happen to other moms before, where their freezer broke down or their fridge broke down and all of their breast milk saved just went bad and they had to throw it away. And so I never would have thought that that would have happened to me, because just I had been seeing these things online, and it wasn't like a direct me type of situation, and none of my like family or close friends had this happen to them either, but unfortunately it happened to me. And so now here I am sharing my story, sharing my experience, and just trying to spread the good juju of this will never happen to you. You will be prepared and your breast milk will be okay. So my main takeaway from all of this is if you are able to create a milk stash, please do so because you will definitely thank yourself later in the long run. Second, please make sure that you are storing your breast milk in the appropriate packaging, labeling, and temperature. And third, there are many benefits of using breast milk. Definitely take up those benefits and use the breast milk for those benefits. Breast milk is called liquid gold for a reason, mama. And that concludes this video. So with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already to support me on my journey here. And if you had also had this experience, please drop it in the comments down below and let's have a conversation about it. Or if you have any further questions, which I did not talk about or answer in this video, then please also write it down in the comments down below and we can definitely have an open discussion about it. And if y'all like my content and want to see more of my content, then you can go ahead and follow me on my other social media platforms. My username is lesliedelaylah on all social media platforms. And until then, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.